Welcome back, everybody, to the Card Chatter with Refractor Jones and Bobbles and Ball Cards. We both hope that you have had an amazing week out there. This will be episode number 15.
15.
15. I was trying
Yep.
to make sure I said that correctly. 15.
Yep.
This will be Friday, September 23rd's episode. So we are winding down September as well. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope your week has been wonderful. Again, the reminder, we have been doing it every episode. I will toss up the little QR code and everything. Mason's Mission, wonderful project he's doing, 100% nonprofit, just trying to raise some money to help pediatric cancer patients and their families who may be struggling or just need a little assistance, maybe a little pick-me-up. The world is in a crazy time right now, and it's a wonderful thing to see a young man put others first and try to do something to help others. So if we can help him help others, I think that would go a long way. So if you can, help out with Mason's Mission. If you can't, it's okay. There is a free button on there that says subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. I know there's been, I think, 3 subscribers since we started this,
4.
and that's okay.
4.
4?
Yeah.
Okay,
4.
4.
Yep. 4. We just picked
Refractor
up another
says
one.
4. He has corrected me. The last I had checked, there was 3,
Yep.
but he corrected me, said there's been 4. So, and that's okay. We appreciate each and every one of you. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and as always, we encourage you, comment down below and join the chatter with us. Jump into the conversation and engage in the topics. So, how are you doing, Refractor? How are you doing this morning, sir?
Very good. Very good.
Well, we've had some good topics with some I guess newsy type stuff this week, and then some hypothetical stuff this week. The Wednesday episode, last episode, we discussed, hypothetically, if Fanatics buys Panini, kind of what we would like to see and everything. And then we discussed the news with Tops. How about for this Friday episode, we get back to things we like about the hobby, things, way we do things, little about us, a little deeper about us and who we are, how we like to do things, and just kind of close out the week on a relaxing manner with some positivity within the hobby. So obviously your hobby name is what I'll call it. Your hobby name is Refractor Jones. Many
not
people
my
know you.
not my government name.
I mean, if you have that on your license, I would be impressed.
You know,
But
I think I might make a fake license just to have that so I can whip it out every once
are
in a
you
while.
allowed to say that? Like, I don't want nobody in trouble here. So
No,
I
I
mean,
can make a Pan American East Coast West Coast play license. Heck, even my
a
kids have play
McLovin
licenses.
license, a
I can go to
McLovin
auto.
license.
No, I can go to Autotopia. I'll just go to Autotopia and go get myself another license and get it under my name.
Well, I want to see it if you get it done. So anyway, your hobby name. Your mom did not name you Refractor Jones. Your grandma
Nope.
didn't name you Refractor Jones.
Nope.
I know she was a big part of your hobby life.
Yep.
But your hobby given name is Refractor Jones.
Yep.
So in your posts, you make it well known that your collection derives from many thousands of refractors. We discussed in the last episode that you are a Tops guy. You don't particularly care for Panini. So
Nope.
these are Tops Chromes, Tops Finest, that sort of thing in the refractor level. Tell folks a bit about how you collect and where the Refractor Jones name came from, your passion with the refractors, maybe a bit about your collection. Hell, tell them where they can follow you. I put it in the description every video for the Instagrams and that sort of thing. He does refractors of the day every day. So share with folks where Refractor Jones was born and what is in the city of Refractor Jones.
That's funny that you asked that, because the name came about from my children. My kids were like, "Dad, you're always jonesing for a refractor. What is it with you and refractors? You've always loved refractors." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I do. I like refractors. I've collected them since '93, and when I was working as a Beckett regional analyst, I was a specialist for the basketball magazine. So I've always had that passion for them, and I didn't care whether it was a common or a star. I love them all equally. So I mean, I'm sitting in front of probably 50,000 right now that I'm trying to sort out that came in, and I still haven't gotten them all done because I sit there and I look at every single one. I don't just breeze through them. I want to see what it is, break it down to the set, break it down to the year, and then say, okay, hey, now I can funnel it over into another sort pile to get ready to build a master set out of it. So it's just a way for me to keep myself busy, because my collection isn't really just all refractors. Yes, I may have over 300,000 refractors, but my my collection is I think it's a pretty amazing collection. I mean, it's a 40-year span of collecting in this hobby, from game used uniforms to baseballs to championship rings. I have really a little bit of everything, and unfortunately to me, space becomes an issue for me. So like we were talking on yesterday's well, actually Wednesday's episode, I was going through a bunch of stuff, starting to purge a lot of my stuff and put it together so I can take it to Children's Hospital and do some repacks in the sense for kids, because that's what I like to do. It's just a way for me to thin out my stock, because if I don't thin out my stock a little bit, I just don't have any more room for these new collections that are coming in, because that's how I've completely about faced my collection. I no longer sit there and go and buy 4 or 5 wax boxes, crack two, and stash a couple, because the prices are just ridiculous. And this is something also we spoke about on Wednesday's episode. But I prefer buying a collection. Volume for me is entertainment. So the more that I get, the happier I am, and that just means I have more time to invest and play with my cards. So even if I wind up with a bunch of commons when I buy collections, I still put them together and they wind up in Children's Hospital, or I take them over to the senior center, and it's just a gateway, an opening, so this way you can have open dialogue with the child, or even a senior. A lot of senior men are familiar with baseball because it was their pastime, and it's kind of neat to sit there and talk to them and learn some of the history of baseball through their eyes. And we just we, I'm 50, so yes, I'm old, but I'm not as old as some of these guys that are in the senior center that are 80, 90 plus, and they have history of watching games in the 50s, and I'm so jealous of that. So I love to sit and listen and hear those stories. So
So
again,
you're
I'm rambling, but I mean my
no, no. I
collection is
was I was
so
letting you
diverse.
take the mic and
It's
tell
got
the
this
story.
it's
Um, so you mentioned that you have over 300,000 refractors, um, and you mentioned your collection is a bit of everything. Is your collecting? I guess like I know you have wax. I know you have a lot of Hall of Fame rookies. I know you have graded cards and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
but your passion, and I'm gonna say it as passion, or maybe I should say your main attraction, so to speak, would be obtaining the refractors. That's what you hunt. That's what you enjoy, right?
Yeah, when I go to shows, I'm buying volume, refractors, or even like today, which before we even started this, and it's bright and early here in the morning, I had to run down to the FedEx warehouse because I had two packages sitting down there, and I know they're loaded with refractors that a couple people have sent me that I purchased. So, I do continuously buy refractors. I just can't go out and find a ton of vintage and anything else, for that matter. Basketball has become the the kind of like redheaded stepchild. I can't find it anymore. It's like it doesn't exist out in the wild. Nobody wants to sell 90s basketball. Everybody wants to hold it. So and that's something that I've always loved. I have a ton of inserts and parallels from the 90s, And that's another thing I have. I have like, let's say, I'm going to say probably 50 to 75,000 just parallels and inserts of basketball stuff from through the 90s. So I've got Ruby's First Day Productions. I'll have, like a Topps Gold. I have all that stuff. But, it won't only just be stars. I'll have tons of the commons also.
And you pick those up as well. Like when you're at a show and you're like, and I witnessed you at the shows. Um, obviously at the national, you were holed up at a table, one dealer's table that had a ton of, what were they, quarter boxes, I believe.
Yeah, he
Um,
was he was quarter 50 cents and a dollar, and then he moved on to 2, 4, and then $6. So I mean, he had a real wide variety. As a matter of fact, I remember you told me that Dr. Becky came in and scooped me on the last day. He came in and bought the whole table out of the quarter stuff. But by then,
yeah.
I had already pulled everything. So
Yeah, I don't know if Dr. Beckett realized that, or if he's seen stuff in there that he still wanted to look at. I don't know, but
mm,
yeah, when I found him on Sunday at the show, it was after you had left. I went over and he had a cart stacking all of the boxes up from where you were at, and I first asked him because I know you know him pretty well. You have a good relationship with Dr. Beckett, and I asked him, I was like, "Are you helping Refractor out?" Because I thought maybe you had like gotten with him and y'all worked a deal out and bought the entire table, and he was like loading up what you couldn't take with you or something. I didn't know what was going on, and he said, "No, I'm buying these so I can learn." So when you go through those boxes, like, are you now just specifically hunting the refractors, or if a rubies pops out, or you mentioned the Stadium Club first days, that sort of thing. Obviously, I'm sure if you see a PMG or a a credentials or something like that, are you popping those out as well, or are you just down to the refractors now, and that's what you're trying to hunt?
no, I mean I buy it all. Here, look, I know everybody can't see it, but I'll show you. Right here on the table, I'm sitting here starting to sort some stuff. And this is
Is that
stuff.
wild card stripes?
Yeah, there's stripes, there's wild card stripes there, there's a bunch of
JJ's
autographs.
gonna hit you for those.
Uh, there's there's a bunch of artist proofs that are here. There's Topps Gold, Peachy Golds, and stuff like that. So I constantly still buy all that stuff. I'll always grab any harder parallel or insert that's out there. I don't care if it's a common or not. It's just it's easy pickings that people drop them in these quarter and 50 cent boxes because they mean absolutely nothing to them, but they
And it might
absolutely
be a
have
player, yeah. It might
they
be a
have value.
player that isn't like well known at all, or he might have been a minor star or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually got some at the national myself. I found some credentials and some rubies and stuff, And so that's why I was curious because um, now by doing this,
Mhm.
and you don't have to give like a number, but let's say the National, you're there all week, you're hunting, you're in these quarter boxes. I know you got what? I can't remember exactly how many I remember seeing you with, but
Over
probably 7 boxes.
no, there was more. It was like over 20. I wound up with over 65,000 refractors
Well,
out of the
I didn't
national.
see how many you shipped.
Oh yeah, I shipped a ton.
Yeah, I didn't see how many you shipped. So,
Because I shipped early at the beginning of the national before the national even started. You know, I came in, my guys had 3,200 count boxes sitting for me. I paid for them, took them right downstairs, shipped them out right away. So they were already at home before the national was even over with.
so let's say 20 boxes, and you say over 35,000, right?
No, no, it was
So
65,000.
okay, 65,000.
Yep.
And anyone at home, I'm gonna sit here and do the math with you. And if we say, let's say you get them for a dime a piece,
Mm-hmm.
do they do you buy them by the box? Do you say, okay, this is a 3,200 count box. We're gonna say there's 3,200 cards in there. I'll give you, you know, what's that, $320? Is that
Yep.
how you do it, or are you getting them on an even lower scale to even knock the dime down?
Well, it really depends on who it is. You know, I have good relationships with a lot of guys that have known me for, 10 plus years and that I've done business with, that they do is send me a text and say, "Hey Alex, I have this many and I'm going to give them to you at this price." I never even argue with, and try to negotiate down unless it's somebody that's new. If it's somebody that's new that has volume, then I'll play with the number a little bit and I'll negotiate. Otherwise, I pay whatever they ask me to pay. Because one, if they're doing me the favor to pull every refractor and hold every refractor that they get, whether it's a semi-star, because they, of course, they're not going to give me, straight stars, but they'll give me semi-stars, minor stars, and of course the commons. I'm not going to sit there and try and negotiate a price and beat them down. But truthfully, average cost is anywhere from 15 cents to 25 cents in bulk form when I'm buying them.
Okay. So the next question that folks are probably going to wonder, okay, because you're doing this as a collector. I completely understand it. That's your passion. You love the shine. And probably, if I had to guess, the more important part is you love the connection. I mean, obviously, you just shared with us the story of where Refractor Jones, how it was born and came about.
Yeah,
So this is like the fun for you. You know,
yeah,
it's the hunt of finding the refractors, or Dell hitting you up and saying, "Hey, I got some more for you."
yeah,
It's almost like
yeah. Look,
there's
this
no
is funny.
real.
This is real funny because Dell's at the Arizona show. He could have shipped those refractors and said, not a big deal, just put them in the mail and send them over. Dell specifically drove over here to Vegas and dropped them off to me. I mean, that's the kind of relationship I have with a lot of these guys, and these guys are just remarkable people in general, and that's why I'll never ever sit there and hit them in the shins at whatever they say, the price is. So whatever the price is, it's the price that I pay. I don't even factor the money in, truthfully, because money doesn't mean anything to me. The cardboard means more to me than the money. So
Well, that's what I was trying to like get at, because I know there's folks going to be out there wondering, and if you just do the math, you said roughly 65,000 from the national. You mentioned 15 to 25 cents, but even on a dime average, that's $6,500.
hmm
So some folks are going to be thinking, why is this guy spending 6,500 plus dollars on 65,000 refractors, and when he's sitting here saying that the guys aren't giving him stars and it's just semi stars and commons, And how would he ever sell 65,000? Because that's the initial thing is like, I know the audience, the listeners are going to be likely calculating this and trying to figure out, you know,
How is
how
that? How is this
how does it make
justifiable?
sense?
See, the thing is, to me, it makes perfect sense because money means nothing to me. I don't. I put no value on the dollar, on a paper dollar. I put more value in my cardboard. As long as my kids are taken care of, my family's taken care of. I don't care. I buy this stuff because I like it, and I like to play with it. So it doesn't.
So when you would say like, let's assume, and again we're just doing this on easy math. Let's say you spent 6,500 on those 65,000 refractors.
Mhm.
It's not about that you got $6,500 worth of cards, value of cards, book value, eBay comps, what have you. You got $6,500 worth of entertainment because you went to the show. Many of them might have already been pulled, but you spent your days there talking to people, hanging out, enjoying the card show, digging through boxes, picking cards out that you found, hunting for your little golden nuggets. Kind of like a miner going out panning for gold in a river or something like that. You go through cardboard boxes trying to find your little refractor shiny nuggets, and then you get to send them home and come home and go back through them again. Tell
Yep.
me about your sorting process a little bit because I've noticed that it seems like anytime the seasons shift or if there's a particular player you're on a run sharing, you obviously have them sorted out somehow to where you know who's in what box. And I would have to believe that over 300,000, I would start like, believe me, my stuff isn't organized. It's the one thing I'm bad about. Do you just do like, okay, these are all commons, these are football stars, these are football semi-stars, and then do them by player from that, and then in alphabetical order? Or how is it that you sort all this out to where you know what you even have?
So what I tend to do is first, because most most of the time when I'm buying at shows, and I'm digging through these boxes, there is no particular order that any of this stuff is thrown in there. They'll have it all mixed up, different sports that, when you're paying a quarter a card, most of the time the dealer's not going to take time to sit there and sort everything. He's just going to throw it into a box and let you dig. If you really want to get that deal, then you got to work for it. So, and that's what a lot of people fail to do at shows because they get that FOMO sensation of saying, oh well, if I hang out too much time here where I see all this stuff, what else am I missing at the show by by not moving on? And and that's kind of something that I've learned over my progression of collecting is that if I find a nice table and there's volume there, I'm going to stick it out and clean out that table before I move on because I can't just keep doubling back and forth to that table. So it makes absolutely no sense to me. But when I do this and I end up with this massive hoard of stuff that I have to ship home or carry home with me, by the time I get home, it'll all be, again, nobody's going to be able to see this, but you see what I'm doing here. I'm in my media room right now, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 9 3,600 count boxes right here of refractors that I have to sort out by sport, then by year, and then ultimately I try to put them all into number order. So then this way, when I go to build a set, I know what I have and what I don't have, and then I'll throw them back into these 32 3,600 count boxes and label each box. 93 finest refractors, 94 finest refractors, 96, and so on and so on. So this way, I have them all on my custom built shelving that I have because the shelving that I have built specifically to hold this because we all know cardboard is heavy, especially sometimes sitting in top loaders and everything else. I basically had to build industrial, good heavy 2x4 shelving just to get it. Matter of fact, I'm going to post a picture of of the shelving units that I had custom built, because I've had some people ask me, they were like, how do you, put store all that stuff? You just stack them all on top of each other? And I'm like, no, I just, I had some shelves built for them specifically, because if I didn't, the weight would just absolutely, collapse. Every time I see somebody with one of those Costco wire, racks, and they throw all their stuff on it, or those plastic flimsy ones, and they try to put serious weight on it, I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting for the collapse to happen. So
Yeah,
I bit the bullet.
I have like industrial. The missus bought them. It's 2 shelving units. Again, I'd need to share some of all my stuff too. But I have like 2 industrial. I've seen your wooden ones where you have like your wax and everything on too.
Right,
But she
right.
ordered mine. I don't know where she got them from, but it's two in like industrial warehouse type shelving units. They're heavy duty.
Hmm.
Um, so even though you mentioned you said that you have a little bit of everything, and I know part of your collection. I'm not. We don't need to sit here and give details of everything, but you know,
Look here real quick, because I know I can only show you, but look what I've been doing. I've been sitting there
yeah. So there's
rearranging
all I've
all those.
seen those your wooden shelves.
See,
Yeah,
look at that's all refractors. I mean, it's
yeah.
sick. It's just crazy sick.
Now I know how tall you are. Can you reach the top shelf?
Shut up.
I didn't see
Look,
a stool
look,
there.
look, look.
Barely, barely. I
Check
see.
it. I,
I'm
I,
sorry, I had to say it.
1, 2, 3, 4. I can get up to the fourth level. I can't get up to the fifth one. So I gotta do the let's say the bunny hop to get up there, to get to the last
I noticed there wasn't a
a
little
step
step
stool.
stool there.
Yeah, no, there isn't.
No, sorry, I had to say that. But
That's all right.
so again, you have a wide variety of things. You don't just hole up and only do refractors. But
Yeah.
when, like, obviously, I know when refractors came around, and I know your passion for that set. I can't remember what you said. What was it? 15 sets you have of the 93s?
Yeah, 15 sets of the 93 finest basketball refractor set. I'm close to 16 right now. I'm like
Okay.
real close.
So that's a set that's near and dear to your heart. That's the start of the refractors. Um, but when would you say you really started making them? Because I'm going to say this, and you can confirm or deny it. But I would have to say that refractors are the centerpiece or the focus of your collecting now, right? Even though you may still pick up other things here or there, your passion right now, your focus point, what you hunt, what you're always after. It's like, if you go in the woods during deer season, you're not worried about the squirrel running around, You'll notice it, you'll see it, but you want to keep eyes on the deer. And so you'll see other things float around, but your focus is really hunting those refractors. When did that take into effect to where you had like a more strengthened focus on what your enjoyment was and the direction that you wanted to go with your collection? You weren't chasing like the next big rookie or what have you.
Hmm. I'm gonna say a long time ago. Truly, eh, I love cardboard, so it really doesn't matter whether it's a refractor or not. You know, I, I, I'm into racing stuff, and I I just I love in anything that has to do with sports cards. I enjoy them. So I don't know that I could basically put myself in a little cookie jar and just say, hey, you know what, this is you, this is what you do. Even though I do the refractor of the day and everything else, that's more of my youngest daughter and I, because my youngest daughter and I used to do a ton of YouTube videos in the early 90s, and it was always the refractor of the day that we called it. And we would sit in front of the camera and she would mumble the words of a refractor, but she could tell you exactly what year the refractor was and who the player was. And then she would say, oh, well, he's good, you know, or he's not so good. I've never heard of him, Daddy. You know, so those were fun times and memories for me. So that's why refractors have always had that, you know, that special meaning in my heart, because of course my little ones are no longer little. So and so those memories to me mean a lot to me, just as much as my cardboard does. But again, I love all sports cards in general. But when I go to a show, yes, I sit there and I try to buy volume refractors. I mean, I have, like I've told you before, I have complete sets all the way from 58 on up. So I just, I really have a really diverse collection. And a lot of that stuff came, of course, in the 80s and the 90s, because stuff was so cheap. You know, I mean, I remember getting complete sets all the time. My grandmother would buy me, you know, a complete set for 40, $50, and it was nothing, you know. So, I mean, and a lot of 70s stuff, I can, you know, very much remember her buying me a lot of 70s sets for under $100. And they were all hand collated sets, of course, and everything else that you'd go to, you know, an LCS and buy them. But we would constantly go to a downtown Fullerton baseball card store in Fullerton, California, and it was a dark little dingy, you know, little sports card shop. But that's where I got my first baseball card, and and I was pretty loyal there, you know, every year. So my collection is just so diverse. I mean, I truly have a little bit of everything. I'm not someone that likes to talk about my collection and sit there and say everything that I have, because I'm not a me guy. I'm more of a hobby guy. That I My collection is my collection, and it shouldn't be anywhere, you know, impacting anyone else's collecting, because everyone should be able to collect what they like and how they collect. And that's kind of why I don't ever sit there and flash and put a lot of other stuff out there, because you know I have a ton of game worn jerseys and stuff, you know, working as a clubhouse guy, and I have a lot of autographed baseballs and bats and all that good stuff. And but you know, those are memories for me. So you know, that's it's not even about the money that most people make things about anymore.
So again, I understand the diversity, and you mentioned that you've done this, you know, you've been in the hobby for 40 plus years, and you just talked about your sets and everything. And obviously, when you were going to shows and stuff, you know, back in the 80s or what have you,
Yep.
um, that would make a lot of sense because the refractors didn't exist. That's
Right.
why I was curious and why I asked, like, because something I deal with, I enjoy all sports cards, but as we know, and you mentioned earlier in this episode, time does become, you know, an issue, or not time, space does become an issue. Uh, you know, the organization of everything, and then the space to store it all, it does become an issue. And that's why I was curious, because since I've known you for 2 plus years now, 2.5 plus years, the thing that I see you most passionate about. Now, don't get me wrong, you buy collections and stuff, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, you pull other things out.
Hmm.
But the thing I've always seen you passionate about, not just because of the refractors, but if you put the links and the pieces together, you have the name Refractor Jones. You do the
Yep.
posts of the refractors. And then I see you go to a show and you're hunting for quarter boxes to pull out refractors. So I can tell your passion is that hunt for the refractors. Now, that's not to say, well, that's all I collect. I don't care about any other pieces of cardboard. Do you think some of it is you were able to accomplish so much early on back in the 80s, in that time period? And as you mentioned, things were cheap. You were able to accomplish it then. You know that items are going to be afforded the opportunity to obtain likely in a collection that you pick up or something like that somewhere along the line. That's why I was curious about you said even your girls notice, Dad, you're always jonesing for refractors.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like intent, I think you're like, you can love and have a wide, diverse collection. But all the pieces sound like you are, like, passionate about your refractors, and that's what you love to go after. That's why I was curious, like, when that came about, and obviously it had to be in the '90s because that's when
Yep.
they started.
Yep.
Um,
93,
so
I was
I just
addicted.
wasn't sure if there was anything else there that said, "Hey, I really enjoy these, and I'm gonna kind of focus more on them," um, versus trying to be such an enormous bubble. Because I myself, and we've discussed this, um, I enjoy, like, I'm proud of the amount I have, the volume I have in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I sit and struggle because, like, my graded stuff, I have in a drawer, and I struggle with. Sometimes I'll open that drawer and I'll go through there and I'm like, oh, I forgot I even had this, because it's like I pulled the card, sent it in, got it graded, and tossed it in a drawer.
But it's like
And in my
Christmas
mind,
again.
I'm like, why did I even do that? I don't have an attachment to this player, this team. Nothing really about this set screams at me. Like, why did I do that? And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is reevaluating my collection. Because I'll tell you, ever since I've started, well, I don't know if my early videos had it in the shots or not, because I don't think I had both camera angles. But ever since I moved my card stuff into this room, those two shelves back there on that wall, and folks can't see it, the listeners can't see it, but those shelves have been there, and those same cards have been on those shelves. And that's all Nationals players. There's one card on that shelf that isn't a national, part of my national collection. And it's actually a Jackie Robinson, which most folks would know I like putting my Jackie Robinson run together. So, what that has spoken to me, I enjoy collecting cards, but I also find sometimes putting my focus into something, like whether it's my Michael Taylor collection or Ken Griffey Jr. or the missus with her Emmett Smiths or my Washington National stuff that I connect with stronger, or my Jackie Robinsons. Those are what I am most proud of, and like what I find the most enjoyment with. So I've been having to ask myself, do I need everything? Do I need to keep everything? Does this speak to me? Um, and that's where, like, I want to I enjoy the volume, but at the same time, it's kind of,
You feel like it's
I don't
weighing you
know.
down.
Which what?
You feel like it's weighing you down.
Well, I feel like, and this is a bad thing to say, but I feel like sometimes I have too much, because again, I've talked about, like, the organization of it is a struggle for me, like juggling the time and trying to figure out how I want to organize it to where I'm not going in a drawer and be like, oh, I forgot I even had this. Or
Let me ask you a quick question here though. Do you feel that you're in this position now because of prior to the way you collected before, because you had to start and stop your collection a few times, that you had a little bit of that fear of missing out, that you've acquired so much now because you've tried to like compensate for the stuff that you've lost in the past.
I think that's a 100% fair take because I've even looked at stuff and I'm like, why did I hold on to this? And a lot of it has been the question of the unknown. Like, you know, and the funny thing is a lot of the stuff is 100%, like nothing's big cards or anything like that that I couldn't replace, right? If I
Hmm.
decided, oh man, I shouldn't have got rid of that, you know, I think it goes both ways. It goes from what I had before, and I have had to rebuild the collection twice. So now it's like I I don't want to let some of this stuff go. Sometimes I feel like when I get stuff graded, I just feel like at that point I just want to hold on to it because now I've put forth the effort sending it in, it's encased and all that. But I'm realizing I've let it get to a point that a lot of it was just because like
Hmm.
there was no like in hockey for example. I've mentioned I really enjoyed starting to watch hockey. And me and the missus enjoy opening Upper Deck and, getting the young guns and that sort of thing. But I've realized if I have a player or a team that I enjoy collecting, I enjoy the collection more, if that makes sense. Like just
Hmm.
keeping every random guy because he might be the hot name out of the product, you know, is kind of like where I'm struggling with is like, well, I don't even watch this guy, you know. Sure, he might have been the top pick or whatever, but I don't have any interest in sitting down watching his team play. I don't really keep up with him. Um, you know, do I need to keep him? Do I need to hold on to him? And my guys I like to collect in hockey would be Jason Robertson and the Dallas Stars players because he's a young player that I started watching and keeping up with. Obviously the Capitals and Alex Ovechkin. So those guys I would like to hold on to. And then I like the Metal Universe set. So I've gotten some of those in my collection that those are ones I want to hold on to. Um, the clear cut young guns. It's always an exciting thing when me and the missus pull one. So those would be something I would hold on to. But then there's some of these other guys. I'm just like, I don't. Why did I keep them? Because the card was valued, and this is where I think some of it I'm trying to detach that value element. Like I don't want to hold on to the card just because at the time the card was $15 or $20 raw, and I was like, well, this is worth sending it in and get it graded. And then I just need to sit on the collection because, well, what if this guy becomes something, right? It's
Hmm.
this, it's FOMO both directions.
Right.
I've been trying to build something bigger because I lost my collection twice, but also the fear of, well, if I just let this go now, what if he becomes something, some superstar? What if he becomes Connor McDavid?
Yep.
So I'm trying to detach from that element of it
Hmm.
because even though I didn't really care what the card was worth, I just I mentioned the $15-$20 because if it was a dollar, it obviously didn't make sense to spend the grading fee on it, right?
Right.
So, but I was still keeping it in my collection, and I'm starting to learn now. It's like, but I don't have any interest in that player, so why am I keeping the card? You
Yep.
know, it's that I want to get my collection to where every piece in it actually speaks to me, and I don't just keep it because, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It does, because
And
that's funny, because that's how diversely different we are as collectors, because that's how you want to focus and how you want to collect. For me, I just want to hoard every piece of cardboard that I can get a hold of, and I don't need to do that, but I choose to do that because I love sports cards in general, period. And again, there is no right way and there is no wrong way. It's about personal preference, how it makes you feel and how you're fulfilled in your collecting aspect. And I think that's probably the toughest thing for us as collectors to overcome, is separating the value of it and monetarily, and collecting for the enjoyment of the card.
And see, when I mentioned the value thing, I added the value aspect of it because I was speaking more on the terms of the graded stuff. You again, viewers can't see, but that box right there in the middle, right there I'm
Uh,
pointing at.
yeah.
So that box is entirely filled with young guns, and they're all raw ones. Because what we would do is, and the reason I put the value there is I would go, if we cracked a case, we'd pull all the young guns out. I would sleeve them all, top load them all, and then I would go through and evaluate, who is a star, who's already hyped up pretty good, doing well,
Hmm.
at this price level, and then I would go to like the guys that are on the fringe, the $10 to $15 thing, and then the rest of them were kind of your lower tier guys, and they would go top loaded in the box. So anybody, I had a rule: if they were $15 or more, I was sending them in to be graded. That's the reason I mentioned the value aspect of it. I
But
wasn't
to
keeping them
with
necessarily
the
because of the value.
with the intentions of selling them, or just collecting them.
So the intent was collecting them. Like I would keep all, at least, one of every single one of them that we would send in to get graded. But that's
Okay.
where I'm at now, is because I'm like looking back on it and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, I don't really care about these players.
Hmm.
So that's why I was saying I want to, I'm trying to find the path to get back. Like, I think I let things swerve off a bit too much and was heading in too many different directions and felt like I needed to keep everything. Part of that is I'm blessed to have a wife that enjoys this. And she's also always saying, well, why are we going to let that go? So it's kind of like both of us were in this mindset of, well, we're building this awesome collection, but then we look at it and we're like, who is that? Like, who is
Yeah.
this guy? We don't even really care about him. So why are we keeping this?
Yeah.
And it's a struggle, even knowing that, and even sitting here saying that I want to get it in that path. This is the part where a collector can get kind of, I don't want to say frustrated, but maybe a good
Sidetrack.
term is lost, because you're
Sidetrack.
trying to find your path, right? And it's a struggle because although I know the direction I want to go, it's still a difficult for me to say, well, I want to sell this stuff, because it's still hard to let go. Even though I don't have the attachment to the players or the team or anything like that, and I know what mentally I would like to get into, what path and direction I want to go on, it's still a struggle. You're sitting there telling me, yeah, hold on to everything, and I already struggle with letting things go.
No, no,
And
I'm not. I'm not telling you to hold on to everything. I'm just telling you, from my point of view, that's how I feel, and
oh,
there's
I
nothing
know, I
wrong
know,
with the
you're
way
just
I
joking,
feel
yeah.
and the way you feel about it. What kind of bothers me, and this is probably the only thing that bothers me in the hobby, because I have a hard time, telling people, I don't trade. I don't sell. My card means something to me. I don't need money. I don't want your money. I want cardboard. And then people say, well, why don't you trade? Well, because then it eats up a lot of my time to try to facilitate a trade, to make something happen. Unless I'm in person with you, I don't trade. And you know me, I would rather gift to you because I like you, and just give it to you, versus even trying to come down to an agreement and say, hey, okay, I'll give you this, you give me that. Because
Yeah, I
again,
mean,
cards don't mean anything to me
you've
in the sense of money wise.
you've gifted things to many people that I know of, including myself. And I'm not, please, everybody, don't go out there and message Refractor. But I could see you being more apt to, if someone messaged you and said, Mr. Jones, I was just curious. I seen you posted X card and I need this for my collection. I'm trying to build a set and it's one that I haven't been able to find. Is there any way you could come off of that, you know, to help a fellow collector out? I could see you more willing to give the person that card and then in hopes that they would re-gift back to you something rather than say, yeah, I'll trade you this because I need this, that sort of thing. It's a free will trade. You may agree to it to give it to them to know that you're helping them complete a set, and just in the hopes that they would pass that along to you, either yourself or someone else, right?
Yeah.
I
It's not
can
even
totally see
necessary.
you being that way.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily me because my mantra is to give is to receive, and if you're a giver, you're always going to receive. And then I'm not saying that I gave this amount of stuff away, so I get this kind of stuff in return. For me, what I get in return is knowing that my piece of my collection is carrying on in your collection. And when I truly know that I'm gifting you a piece of my collection that is staying in your collection because you love it, not because you want to make an extra dollar out of it. So
Right.
that's where I struggle with a lot of people, like on Instagram, because I get 20 plus DMs a day, on there asking me for stuff, and I wish I could accommodate everyone and just and do things for every single person. But first and foremost, I'm a kids kind of guy, so I will always do for children no matter what, because one, kids don't have deep pockets, and it's always good to bestow a little bit of kindness on a child and hope that they become a kinder adult when they become adults. It's tough to be a kid in this day and age of collecting. I mean, I know when I was a kid in the 80s, it was fantastic because I'd go buy a pack of cards for a quarter. and I was thrilled to death. I had a buck in my pocket, and I was going home from Circle K or 7-Eleven with 4 packs of cards. So,
You know,
you know,
you speak on the 80s, and I actually had this conversation with some folks yesterday. It's kind of amazing that the topic that we discussed, the last two episodes with the Topps Chrome debacle and those short print cards. And I was thinking back, like, if this was the 80s or even probably likely the early 90s, and those cards weren't in the product, none of us would know
no,
until maybe Beckett released an article, a month or 2 months later, whenever they got the details in time enough and was confirmed enough to be able to confidently put an article out about it. None of us would ever have known that. There would have
right,
been no way for that solution to have even been happening. There wouldn't have been, all of the YouTube content or the posts on social, Instagram and Twitter and all of that. It's amazing, like, to just sit and think. And we talk about the 80s and 90s like it was ancient times, but it was when a lot of us started collecting, and
hmm
that's just the way the hobby itself, but not even just the hobby, but the world has changed,
yeah,
um it's
I,
just with technology today and everything else, it's almost like the first day, after 8 hours, people were scouring eBay. It was like, oh, none of these are on eBay, something's fishy. That's how quick things are picked up on now.
yeah,
In the 80s and 90s, we would have been oblivious. We would
yeah,
have been like, dang, they made these dang short prints hard. And we wouldn't have been cracking boxes. We would have, we would have went into the shop and there would be packs there. And, you'd be buying them by the pack. We didn't go in and buy cards by the boxes in the 80s.
hmm
And so it's just interesting to
I
look
did.
at the way.
My grandmother bought me boxes all the time. $7, and $15 a box. I can still remember it. The good old days.
I don't think the shops that I had where I had 2 shops that I went to as a kid. One of them was just a little small section of a bookstore, and they had very, very little wax. Um, I don't think they had any sealed boxes on the shelf to where you could just buy the box. I think it was only packs.
Yeah,
It was called BJ's Books. And then I don't remember the name of the other shop, but it was across the town, same town, on the other side of town. My mom would let me walk over there, and it was you know, a normal sized card shop, but I don't I don't remember sealed boxes on either of those 2 shops. I only remember packs being available. I don't
did
know
you
if it
when
was.
you were growing up? Did you have the ice cream man coming down the street with with the ice cream truck?
Yeah,
You did he have cards on the truck?
no.
Really?
Our ice cream man never had cards.
Yeah, I talked my ice cream man into carrying baseball cards.
No, ours never did. Ours never did.
But that's how much of a
Um,
degenerate I was. Even as a kid, I loved sports cards so much that I physically talked my ice cream man into buying a box of baseball cards and having a box of baseball cards there. And I was the only one that bought them. Nobody else wanted them. Everybody else wanted the ice cream. I didn't want the ice cream. I wanted the cards. So he knew
yeah,
that if he came down my street, I was buying at least 4 to 8 packs every time. So he was getting the two
my
bucks out of me.
my access to cards, like I said, was friends in school. I had probably 8 or 10 different friends. We would all trade and all that stuff amongst each other. And then holidays, like Christmas and birthday and stuff like that, you would get gifts of, you know, either stuff, like I said, at Christmas time, they had the little plastic candy canes, or Toys R Us used to carry like plaques
Kmart.
with cards in
Yeah.
them and stuff like that. And then the 2 card shops, one was on one side of town, one was on the other. And my mom, if she had to go to that town to run errands or what have you, get groceries, she would drop me off at one shop or the other. And she would tell me, "Are you going to go to the other one?" Because then she would know which side of town she needed to pick me up on. Because if I started at one, she would know that I was going to walk to the other one, and so she would go over there to pick me up. And it all depended on like how long she was going to be, what all she had to do, of whether or not I could walk across town to go to the other shop. But yeah, I think this has been a great topic. For a Friday, a little bit more about each of us, and you know to share. You mentioned a good point. It was a reason I wanted to talk about this. Is even though we both do things differently, that's one of the greatest parts of this hobby. Is there is unlimited options, like literally unlimited options for people to enjoy and partake in the sports card hobby. You can have a vintage set that you just are an expert at and want to collect every single detail about that set and try to accomplish the highest grade possible of that set. You can collect ultra modern guys, and if you're a guy that likes to prospect and you want to just get these new guys and see how they turn out, and bank up a guy that you're really high on and see how it works out for you. You can try to keep every piece of cardboard you ever touch, and have a goal of reaching more and more and more, and just keep everything. You can um, be like Mike O in his Phillies collection, or Big Scott with his Mets collection, or Gary Carter. You can be a player collector. I remember I don't know if he does a lot of his videos anymore, but I believe his name was Tanner Tan Man Baseball Fan. Was a really huge super collector of Jose Canseco. So there's like so many different ways, and there's no right way. There's no wrong way. Um, and that's one reason I wanted to bring this topic up because I knew kind of how you did your thing, and I speak on how much I have, but I also am 100% willing to sit here and admit I don't keep everything, and I'm actually getting to a point that is starting to overwhelm me a little bit, and so I'm trying to thin it down. And I thought it was a great way to like allow you to convey to listeners more about your collection and how Refractor Jones was born and why refractors, and is it just stars? Are you just collecting the stars or is there commons in there? Um, but then also touch on, the route that I'm trying, like I'm on that Google Maps trying to figure out the direction because I kind of took a detour. The bridge was out for a minute. I kind of took a detour and got turned around a little bit. The woman on the Google Maps kind of took me on a different path for a minute, and I'm trying to zone myself back in, so to speak.
You know,
And
but
I actually
but the funny thing is that no one's going to be able to tell you though, Bubbles, as to how to navigate that path. You truly have to figure that out for yourself and be happy with the decision that you make at the end of the day. Because if you make it based on how somebody else is doing it or how somebody else is, trying to coach you or guide you in that direction, you're not going to be happy with your decision. It
oh
ultimately
no.
has to be done by you because it's your collection. It,
And that's exactly right. That's why I just wanted to talk about it. And even if you told me, no, man, keep everything, like I'm not gonna be able to listen to you. As much as I love you as a person, I enjoy your friendship as a collector and everything. I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to have to go against your will, and I'm going to do things my way. And I
you mean
completely understand
you
that.
you mean you're not going to buy another house to use it as a top loader?
No, sir, that will not be
Oh,
happening.
mm.
And the truth is, like, I actually do this quite often. I've noticed that I branch out a little bit and then I bring it back in. And I don't remember who I was talking to, but they actually said that's good. That's good to kind of let it grow and then purge because then you're building your collection and you're finding different elements that you may not have ever searched for or looked for before. But you might have found some that you picked up along the way, and then you decided, I don't really need that. I did kind of, when I dabbled with comic books, I in February 2021, when cards went haywire, I took a step out and I was like, let me go play with comic books and learn a little bit over here, a little bit. But then I realized, okay, this isn't a direction for me. So I kept a couple of them I had picked up. The other ones I was like, all right, let's hit the reset button. You got the old NES system, blow in the game a little bit, pop the cartridge back in, hit the reset button. That's kind of what I do. Like I let it grow and then I pull it back into what I actually enjoy, and then let it grow and then pull it back in. And
But that's actually a
I think
pretty
it's
good thing
healthy.
because it's healthy because it also gives you that educational value on it because
Right.
you get to learn more about different topics. You're not just in one little path of collecting. Your diversification of collecting is not only playing with the stuff, but educating yourself to absorb that knowledge. The
Right.
encyclopedia that I hold in my head of sports cards in general is because I touch and played with everything, and that's how you understand it and you learn it.
Well, you also have the cabinets for like the Dewey Decimal System, so
Right.
you can build that encyclopedia and actually have something to keep it in. Mine's like Google, and like my search history sometimes needs to get my cache or however they say it on the computer terms, the technical term,
Yeah,
it needs
your
to get
cash file.
cleared out because I
You
don't
got
have the Dewey Decimal cabinet. So,
to.
but no, I think that's like a beautiful. I actually love that we talked about this today because this is something like, when we're talking about Panini or whatever, and we could look at things different ways, that's one thing. But this is literally the scope of the hobby and the element of it, and to share how we both have a passion for this. We both enjoy collecting cards. You know, we both keep up with things within the hobby. We both are constantly learning. Neither one of us knows everything, even though, the encyclopedias could be large or whatever. But the key is nobody needs to do the same thing the same way. None of us.
Mhm.
Nobody out there, no listener, no viewer, no YouTuber, no TikToker, Instagrammer, Twitterer. Nobody does everything the same way. That's why this is a beautiful hobby. There's so many different paths that people can take, and there's no right or wrong. And really, I know you had mentioned if you got the Satchel Paige, that would be like the end of your collection. But the truth is, I don't know that there's ever an end. It might be the end of what you're chasing, because that's like
Yeah,
your chaser. That's your
yeah,
chaser. But
right, my marquee card to have in my
yeah,
collection. Yeah, because I mean I have everything else that I've wanted. I have a ton of vintage and I have a ton
yeah,
of vintage stars and stuff like that. But the Satch is, my last one.
that's your last on your chaser. But I think even if you obtain that, you would still go hunt in those dime boxes, quarter boxes for the refractors and that sort of thing
Oh,
to
absolutely.
still stay right. So that's what I wanted. Like that was my point with that. Even though you said that card was like, and I'm doing air quotes for the listeners, but the end card or whatever, it
Mhm.
wouldn't it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the end of you collecting. There's
Yeah,
no dead end.
on the vintage end, yeah, that's it is on the vintage end. That's why, I don't I don't go out and buy it, you know. So
Right. But anyway, I think this has been a great topic. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this conversation. Comment below. Let us know. Let us know a bit about how you collect. What do you collect? Who do you collect? Um, do you purge your collection every so often? I know like Refractor isn't the only person I know that keeps everything. James Gillum, who is very near and dear to my heart, comes down and visits with us every time the Chantilly show goes on. Uh, he was at the National, completed his 56 top set. He's another one. He is a pure, passionate collector, and I am privileged to be the only person to my knowledge. I don't think he's ever sold to anyone else, but he sold one card to the missus for my birthday, and it was because he had a duplicate of it.
mhm.
And I think he's made a trade with Mike O on some cards, but other than that, like he pretty much keeps. I actually have a card that I need to find out what he wants me to do with because he was going to sell it. So that would have been card number two, but he actually wanted me to sell it. He didn't want to sell it.
Mhm.
So I still have it here for him, but
So here,
in case he
look,
doesn't.
this just to run off here, just one more time here, real quick. This is why Fanatics needs a person like myself that needs to be at that top position to say, hey, this is what the hobbyist wants, and not necessarily me. Someone like me, someone like you, someone who is passionate about collecting because they enjoy collecting, because that's what the hobby needs. The hobby needs the direction and pointed towards the hobbyist. The money always comes. It always will. And the big
This
mistake that a lot of people, make is that this small little circle that we have of the sports card industry, guys just keep getting recycled and they move on from one spot to the next spot instead of hiring on the outside and say, hey, look, I'm going to bring in somebody who's truly passionate about this hobby because he or she will relate better to our collectors, and two, we need a different path because yes, we're here to make money, but we're gonna make more money if we do it with the collector's mindset.
Yeah, and I think this could be another topic maybe for next week we could bring up. I'll definitely note that one down. Um, because I think you're right. Someone we hear often like, you know, I'm just gonna throw names out, not for any particular thing, but we hear Nat Turner's a collection or Josh Luber's a collector or this, that, and the other, right? But they're I don't know how to say this without making it sound wrong, but they're in a sandbox above the majority of the people in the hobby.
Correct,
So
and that's
they
that's
may be
where
a collector, but their sandbox is on a different level. And
correct.
to connect with the people in a wide scope, maybe it would be good to not have just one person at the top, one leader. Maybe have a couple. Maybe have some people up there that know the lower end game of just an all around collector that just loves cardboard. Maybe have someone up there that's in it for whether you want to call it investing, flipping, what have you. Maybe have somebody up there to speak on their behalf. And then
Yep.
maybe have somebody up there as a high end collector that knows, you know, and is really passionate about that market. They don't care
Mhm.
about the top's flagship rookie. They want the one of one logo man dynasty purple speckled sparkle, you know, 8-figure cart, right? So maybe they need a team at the top and not just a person because
Yep.
I think that could actually help. Then you're getting views and speaking for everybody and not just one little sandbox. So
Yep.
that'll be a topic we can bring up later on. But anyway, I think this is a good conversation for Friday. I hope everybody enjoys it. Please like, again, comment, subscribe. If you can, go back to the beginning of the video, hit that little QR code and donate and help out Mason's mission. But best of all, please have a wonderful weekend and thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.